I'm Ian Moore, and I'm going to be talking about the third in my series of the rule of three. In this case, happiness. As we can see, the pie chart is divided into these three sections, as we did in the other areas. And happiness is an interesting point to discuss, because people assume that the goal in life is to be happy. In fact, we have it enshrined in the Constitution of America that the pursuit of happiness is an integral part of being an American. No other constitution in the world even dares to say such a thing. Even likewise, they don't even dare to say that people are equal. There's no other constitution in the world that says that they're equal across the board. Okay, America does, and that's what makes it such a great place to be in and to relate to people in. Okay, there is some fundamentals there that everybody has access to. In terms of happiness, it's a strange and complicated process. Most people, when you ask them, what do they want out of life? They say, oh, I want to be happy. And you say, well, what are you doing to be happy? Well, I kind of feel that it should be coming my way, because if I'm good to my parents and my family, and I go to work every day, and I support my kids playing sports, and I support my sports team, whatever, that should make me happy, you know. But in reality, what we find when we look at it, and when all the research people pour all their information in, and there's been some very fine studies by Harvard University for many years, for 25 years or so, we find that over 50% of our happiness comes from our genetic makeup, meaning that there are some people who may be in a very poor and miserable financial situation, but their instinct is to be positive. And we can look out at lots of people who have what we would say the means to be happy, financial comfort, security, etc., a good job or whatever, and find that they're not, okay? A lot of this, the majority of this, comes down to the genetic makeup. They have no choice about it. Some people are just naturally miserable, some people are just naturally happy, and that's just how it is, okay? Now, having said that, that's 50% of their condition, okay? The next larger part, and we go into this a little bit more later, 40% of our happiness is based on our intention to be happy, okay? Our intention, our desire to be happy, what we will put in practice to be happy, what we find in our lives that pursues it, okay? And by intention, we're actually just thinking of the thought of it. It's not necessarily a thing, because on the other side, down here, what everybody spends their time running around trying to accumulate, particularly in our capitalist world, is the status, the dollars, the status, the class, always struggling to get the bigger car, the bigger house, thinking that that will in turn make us happy. People are always doing, again, when we ask the question, what do you want out of life? Oh, I want to be happy. Well, what are you doing to be happy? Well, I'm trying to marry the right girl, I'm trying to get the right job, I'm trying to do all of these things. Nobody ever says, well, I got up this morning and I went for a great walk because that made me happy. I went to my bagel shop, I had a great breakfast, that made me happy. How do we, again, we're going back to some of our ideas of achievement, how do we measure that we're happy? You know, one of the reasons that people run out of context with being happy is that they don't ask themselves in the first place, what if I got this thing, if I got that $1 million, how and why would I be happy? What would I be doing that would make me happy, that I'm not happy now? Okay? How would that fundamentally change the nature, our genetics, and the fundamental nature of our intention? Because let's face it, if we strive to make that $1 million, after a while, unless it's instantaneous, and that can be the worst thing that happens, you win the lottery and you suddenly get all this money, you're no longer happy. You're a financial juggler. You've got to deal with all of this money now. It becomes a completely different issue. But if you spend a long time building that money, working hard or whatever, after a while, the activity itself takes over the desired end result. okay? So you find yourself, and we see this all the time when people retire, okay? They've been working for 40 years, they've saved money, they've got a retirement, or they don't, or they've made a lot of money, you know, in one way or the other. Then suddenly they get to retire and they say, is this it? That's it? I've got nothing else to do? I was happy doing that work, even though it was back-breaking and miserable and stressful and all kinds of things, okay? So again, we have to ask ourselves, what is being happy? And in that context, we have to realize that only 10% of our happiness is affected in any real sense by the amount of money we have, the status that we have, the class, okay, or the class that we live in. Okay? A lot of people want to shift. In America, we'd like to believe that there aren't any classes. And we do that to fool ourselves into slipping into these different classes because we've now surrounded class with money. So if you are a university president and you're making, you know, $300,000 a year, you can pretend to be part of the rich class, okay? When in effect you may have come from a very working class kind of background. But money is the sort of the grease that slides between class in this country. Of course, the people with the real money, the old money, they know the difference, and they're definitely going to keep these guys out, okay? Because that's what class does. But regardless, this, only 10%, much of the area that we work in, all our days, when we drive in from town, we drive 2 hours to work every day and 2 hours to go back and spend an hour with our family before we have to go to bed at night, okay? All of that is tied up in this, getting the money, getting the status, getting the class. And it only represents 10% of what we would hope is going to be happiness. So, as an example of what happiness is and the breakdown of it, this is, again, part of our system, part of our series here talking about the rule of three. Once you know how these things are, regardless of your opinion, okay, you can manipulate them for your good. And ultimately, that's what education and ideas come down to. It's not that something is right or wrong, but there is materials, there are ideas that you can use for your betterment. And if you choose to do so, you can be happy. Okay? So, until next time, this is Ian Moore saying thank you for listening.